Hello, students. Welcome to our course, which is called Different Things in Different Semesters. It relates to NASBIT, which is International Business Certification. And a couple of procedural notes. Number one, if you're in the summer compressed course, you'll need to watch 2 lectures per week. This is lecture number one. So let's start off with lecture number one. And first, I want to tell you that when you hear me use the term NASBITE, NASBITE, that's an organization that stands for the North American Small Business International Trade Educators. And basically, they provide a lot of education and resources for students who wish to go into international business. Now, taking this course can do 3 things for you. First, it prepares you to work in international business. There is an amazing amount of information we're going to cover, and we'll cover it quickly. The information we'll review will come directly from the NASBIT course, and from 30 years in international business, I can tell you that indeed it's good information, and it does prepare you well for an international business career. Second, NSU has a what does it call? International Business Certification. If you complete this course and others, you can actually have the International Business Certification, which of course you can put on your resume, and it will distinguish you from other applicants once you're in the workforce post graduation. Some students like to take the NASBIT certification exam. I'm one of, I don't know, maybe 2, 3 people that have taken it and passed it in Oklahoma. I'm not saying it's that difficult. I'm just saying if you do that, you can get a certification as an international expert, if you will, or trade expert. And to do that, you have to have completed either 2 years of college level study or worked in commerce for 2 years. So you could actually do it after completing your international section. Um, Let me do a share here for you. And we'll be looking at the outline. And these are the materials you will have. Okay. Basically, the entirety of the materials are divided among 4 arenas: global business management, marketing, supply chain, trade finance. So those are the areas that we will be studying. Um, Within each of these 4, they try to emphasize 5 things, subpoints, if you will, that you'll see here. Now, let's jump. The reason you'll see in your materials these 3 diagrams is I like to, whenever you're thinking about international sales and international sales transactions, is to see where it fits within this. Some things, for example, the ones we'll talk about first, that is setting objectives for your company wide, et cetera, then indeed it'll be management. It'll be outside of this specific flow. But in any event, basically in any transaction, international, even domestic, you're going to see there's a quote or a request for quote inquiry. You're going to quote it. You'll get an order confirmation, purchase order. You'll make it. QC will check it out, pack it up, and then deliver it. And we'll talk about various delivery means, the sale, and then after sale service. This is just another way to look at it from really an accounting perspective, if you will. And here's another diagram. So just look through those on your own. Now, let's switch into the first general area that we talk about is a global mission statement. Okay. Let me give you a piece of advice for this course. Whenever you see a key concept, that is definitely something I want you to remember for this course, okay, to focus on. But basically, a mission statement um, just basically says what are we about? The what, why, who, and where of our company, the why. I gave some examples. Ooh, I shouldn't have Tesla on here anymore. That's controversial. TED, you might have heard TED Talks to spread ideas, PayPal, build the web's most convenient, secure, cost-effective payment solution, etc. So this basically, and if you're in management, you may actually come up with this mission statement for the entire company, or you start your own company. What are we about? And just capture the essence of what you do. Now, different from that is a vision statement. To see on the bottom, vision statements and mission statements are not the same. Vision is more aspirational, more so you've already talked about a mission statement, who we are. Now you're going to jump over to a vision statement. Where are we going? What do we want to do? They're aspirational, if you will. So you see, IKEA create better everyday life for many people. Southwest become the world's most loved, most efficient, most profitable airline. So it's more, I hate to say this, but touchy-feely, if you will. You will see this. It's kind of hard to see here, so I'll let you look at it. But basically, this just gives you a distinction between mission statement, vision statement. You don't have to memorize this. This is just to help you further understand the distinction between the two. Um, Now, the second task is we get into when we're going into another country. And I will, throughout this course, I'll be using the US as an example of the home country. But obviously, we have so many students around the world that please recognize this is just an example during this class. Ethics, of course, is what is morally, if you will, appropriate and proper in the, and yes, business is to have ethics and to follow those ethics. No sure way to ruin your company than to make some major violation that could cause criminal or other issues and PR nightmare with a company. Now, what about culturally appropriate? We're going to get into that as well, but culturally appropriate, say that three times, techniques for companies. And that means noticing when you go into a country, learning what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. We're going to cover that a little later. Now, when you're looking at business ethics, I like this little diagram here. And basically, it shows you, it uses the term firm. Okay. And the firm or company. And basically, when you're in management, which you're going to be, you have to consider many different entities or groups that have an interest. They call them stakeholders usually, but groups that have an interest in your company. And when you're making decisions, strategic decisions, pricing, employment, whatever, you have to consider all of these. For example, let's say that we are, because of economic conditions, getting rid of 10% of the workforce. Well, obviously, employees are going to be terribly considered. Your stockholders or shareholders, in other words, who owns the company, the shares of the company, they might be thrilled because the shares are going to go up. Lenders are going to be starting to be concerned because is your business on shaky ground and they have a lot of money with you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So my point is, when you're making decisions, ethical, business, legal, you really need strategically to not be short-sighted, but to consider all these stakeholders that are involved. Next, when you go into a factory, when we're talking about ethics, ethics is not necessarily what's legal. I'll let you look at this little sort of not comical, but really simple on your own. But this video on YouTube about the ethics. Now, Bhopal's an example. That might be the Bhopal, and if not, that is really troubling. But basically, in Bhopal, India, many years ago, company goes in and sets up this chemical processing plant, and they followed all the laws, but it was terribly dangerous. And the release, 500,000 people exposed, 3,000, 10,000 died, et cetera, et cetera. And so the point I'm trying to make is here is even if you have no moral compass, and God bless you, I hope you do, but even if you don't have a moral compass, you should consider the ethical implications on the people, if for nothing else, for PR reasons, for other reasons. So that's the point of ethics when you go into another country. It really has business implications aside from a personal moral compass. When you go, there's a lot of different resources that you can find on online. This is an online resource I've used whenever I go into a new country. I'll look at this or two, three other places and find out some of the cultural differences. I lived in Japan for a while during college, and for example, you'd go to visit a friend, and their wife would say they're not at home, even though they were standing right behind them. Well, this is acceptable because the key is it's a bad time and you're saving face. The In Japan, there's a hesitance to say no. So when someone breathes in through the teeth or says that's difficult, that is a very strong no. Um, in Malaysia, there's actually a constitutional legal preference for native Malays in business. And they, like I said, they have protections. So the key is that you really need to study local culture and not be ethnocentric, but put that culture's hat on when you go into that country. Here's some examples. I'll let you read through, but basically, Nike made a really, really bad move in countries that used Arabic. I'll let you read through that. Indonesia, there's some things like this about pauses, etc. But these are just some examples of the local culture. I'm going to let you look at cross-cultural issues, but there's a concept called cultural relativism. Oh, I can't even say it. And that basically you don't go completely saying in life, I'm not telling you what to do, but that there is no ethical right and wrong. And in business, we don't believe that either. But this is an interesting video to watch this in the business context. Now, here's another website that I see you that I show you that DuPont is a good example, that they have an actual ethics policy online, and the company you work for may actually have an ethics policy online. I've helped create a number of these. And so what you do is your starting point is the law, and then you move to beyond that. What's ethical? What's appropriate, especially for the country in which you're in? Now, key issue right here, international business managers. When you go into a new country, do not be ethnocentric perspective. And I see this problem all the time. When you go in, don't be surprised at local culture. Don't talk louder thinking everybody speaks English. Don't view things from your own perspective. You have to put on a new glasses, set of glasses. And so a good approach is what's called polycentric. So I'll let you read that. Now, here's a really interesting, this is so interesting for a nerd like me, anyway. This is called Hofstadter's cultural dimensions theory. And you'll notice that I have a couple of things to see. But basically, in this study, they talk about high culture, high context versus low context. So in the US, for example, we are so low context. We just say exactly what we're thinking. And in many cultures, you have to understand the context, the communication, what's going on to get the full picture or to find out what really is going on. I already gave you an example of Japan, where you say this is difficult. That's a very strong no. So this guy Hofstadter did a study on low context versus high context societies, and so I'd like you to read that and be familiar with that. Okay, that was a real quick one, the first one, and we're going to move on to lecture two after you see this one. Thank you.